Merhaba everyone, welcome back to my channel, or just welcome if you are new. Today's video is a very special one to me. I was hoping for it to go live yesterday, but I had an internet problem and it only just got fixed this morning. Yesterday was August 4th and the 2-year anniversary of the Beirut port explosion. I can still remember the events of that day very clearly. I was sitting at my desk editing a stop-motion video that would go up on my channel the next day. I heard a distant boop type of sound and felt the shutters of my window vibrate. I totally panicked and ran downstairs to ask my dad if that was the sound of an explosion, as you normally would in the situation. You see, living in Lebanon, you can never feel 100% safe. There's always the threat of a war looming over your head. So me thinking that an abnormal sound could be an explosion is not really that far-fetched. But my dad, he was really calm when he answered me. He said it was just the sound of a plane breaking the sound barrier. And to be honest, my dad's answer was logical. He lived during the war, so he knows that if anything were to happen, it would first happen in the south or Beirut, and we live nowhere near those places. We are actually an hour and a half drives away from the city, so the thought of hearing or feeling a bombing was absurd. I still wasn't totally convinced with the explanation. Then the phone started buzzing and we started receiving messages asking if we were in Beirut or if we were okay. So we turned on the TV to check out if something had happened, and there it was on the screen in big red letters. Breaking news, massive warehouse explosion at the port of Beirut. So it wasn't just the sound of a plane breaking the sound barrier. It was the sound of an explosion breaking the city, an actual explosion. Its aftershock could be heard and felt across the entire country. It even reached Cyprus and Turkey. More than 250 people died that day. Around 7,000 were injured and at least 300,000 became homeless. The explosion destroyed everything in its path. A huge chunk of the port where the warehouse used to be vanished. Every single Lebanese person was in shock over what happened. The news became worldwide. Now, I'm not going to go into the political situation in Lebanon, but the government didn't do anything regarding what happened in order to help out the victims and their families. It was up to the people to do the work. Citizens from all over spent the better part of the next month cleaning up the city and rescuing people who were still stuck under the debris. After the dust settled a little, experts in the field of explosives started to explain what happened. They said that on a scale, the explosion is scaled down from a nuclear bomb rather than up from a conventional one. Right now, the Beirut port explosion is ranked the fourth largest non-nuclear explosion of all time. And until this day, it is still claiming lives. This past year, we lost another 8 people who sadly gave in to the injuries they had sustained on August 4th, 2 years ago. Now, whether good or bad, the people who lost their lives are daughters, sons, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers. The explosion did not differentiate between the ages. It took every soul that stood in its way. So today, I am releasing this video as a tribute to those we've lost. I am basically dedicating the entire month of August to commemorate their memory. So all the videos that will be published this month are inspired by Lebanon. Some of them are recreations of actual places scattered around the country or inspired by places I visited and liked. Others are my university projects that reflect restoration projects for the country. I am calling this one a Lebanese suburban house. We don't really call our houses suburban. In Lebanon, you live in either one of those places. You either live in an apartment, a villa, or a house. But I took inspiration from August 4, 2020 and thought about the people living in the suburbs of Beirut. Young adults attending university in Beirut don't rent out dorms or studio apartments if they have relatives living in the area. They mostly stay at their grandparents' or aunts and uncles' places. This is how the idea of this house came to light. I built the house in Tartouza because I feel that this is the closest world in the Sims 4 to Lebanon. Lebanon is a Mediterranean country, which means that in the entirety of its west coast is on the Mediterranean Sea. It has beaches and mountains, waterfalls and bridges. Also, one of the rocks that you can see in the sea of Tartouza in the world map, it's on the right side, I think, of the world map. It looks like an exact replica of a rock we have in Beirut called Sakhret al-Rawshe. It is a famous touristic destination for people visiting. Also, the countryside of Tartouza looks a lot like some villages in Lebanon. These villages are famous for having vineyards and producing wine and arak. And the architectural style of the houses in Tartouza looks exactly the same as the traditional Lebanese architectural style. Plus, around the same time as my wedding stories was released, the Sims team updated the game and gave us mneish and knefe dishes. So I thought it was only fitting to build my Lebanese suburban in this world. I chose a lot that is 30 by 20 in the middle of the map almost, because I felt it was the closest plot that shows resemblance to the suburbs of Beirut. As you can see, the house is completely stone with an orangey roof, shuttered windows and terracotta or stone tiling. That's basically what Lebanese architecture looks like. The basic shape of the house is basic, actually. It is just a rectangle with two rectangles on top of it, but for aesthetics reasons I made a couple of bump outs so that the shape would look more interesting in the game, if that's the correct way to say it, I guess. Lebanese houses in the olden days were either a big box sectioned into functional spaces or built by room. People didn't have much money back then, but they did own large pieces of land because they were either farmers or fishermen. So whenever they had enough money to build a room, they would do just that. And if their family grew big enough, which it normally did, they would build another floor to accommodate the rest of the rooms. In Lebanon, every house has a small garden and trees. It is part of the urban law, if I'm not mistaken, that relative to the area of the land a person owns, he or she should plant a certain number of trees. Now, the garden is used for many purposes. Some have outdoor seating for hot summers, some use it for planting herbs and other vegetation. It differs from house to house. And since I decided that this house was originally built room by room, I decided to have the stairs on the outside. A lot of houses in villages have their stairs on the outside. The main entrance and main floor of the house are the first floor. That is the downstairs. You saw me place a table and chairs right at the front door with a barbecue. This is for those hot summer days to enjoy a coffee or have friends over and enjoy barbecue skewers. We Lebanese, we love our barbecues. We call them mashawi. We love all food actually, not just the mashawi and naish part. The main entrance takes you directly into the kitchen. It is a fairly basic kitchen with a small dining table in the middle. I use the base game counters. Now throughout the build you will see that the interior is not that luxurious. It is basic actually and not very tidy or neat. This was intentional from my part because I wanted to show how the average family would live. Not during these days. These days it's a different story, but this is for another time completely. From the kitchen, you go directly into the dining room. Nobody uses the dining room. It just collects dust, and the dining table usually turns into storage space for books and other stuff you don't need at the moment. Or it could be converted into an office for working from home or studying. But it is there, so I put it in this build. I used mainly furniture from Jungle Adventure. I also placed that blue door painting that comes from City Living. I love this painting so much, mainly because it reminds me of an old abandoned place I broke into a few years ago. I did not change the wallpaper on the downstairs because in my mind the people living here kept the old and original structure of the house, which is stone. Basically, Lebanese houses are probably 1,000 stones stacked on top of each other. And the big arches I used from Jungle Adventure are to pay tribute to the vaulted ceilings found in almost every old Lebanese architecture, that is. The house ended up being on the average to large size, I would say. There are 3 bedrooms, 1 on the first floor and 2 on the second floor, and 2 bathrooms, so it would fit a family of 6 Sims very easily. The TV room of the house, or الأوضة الشطوية, as we call it, can be accessed from the hallway of the kitchen and dining room. It has a TV, a bar, a bookcase, and a wood burner. Now, the wood burner is very important in Lebanese houses for many reasons. We get really cold winters in Lebanon, so the extra warmth a wood burner would give off is always welcome. We also like to have a Saturday with friends around it, grill some potatoes, chestnuts, enjoy a glass of wine from time to time. That's normally during the winters. In my mind, the original household of this house is an old couple. They are both retired. He likes to tend to the garden every day and enjoys an occasional shisha on the upstairs porch at sunset. She, however, loves to gossip. She gets together with her neighbors for a subhiyya every morning to know the latest stories. She feels betrayed if something happens and she wasn't made aware of it. Now, I'm not condoning this behavior or saying that it is absolutely okay to do this and talk about people behind their backs, I mean. But remember that I said my inspiration is Lebanon, so the story that goes along with this build is also Lebanese. And trust me when I tell you that every single town, village, and city has those people. You know, the people who would sit on their balconies all day, every day, just to know everything about everyone, yet those people. And as I said in the beginning of the video, this build is particularly inspired by the young adults who move in with their relatives, so they don't have to pay more money to rent out a place to be able to attend university. So this old couple had their granddaughter move in with them so she wouldn't have to commute every day to attend her classes. There's always heavy traffic because we live in a tiny country, therefore our roads are also tiny, so commuting is not always an option. So the main floor of the house has the grandparents' bedroom and the other rooms that are most used, like the kitchen and the living room, while the second or top floor of the house has the other 2 bedrooms. Off of the grandparents' bedroom is the downstairs bathroom. The house has 2 bathrooms, one on the main floor and the other is on the top floor. Now I only show me furnishing one because it's a bathroom and honestly it doesn't have anything special in it, so it is kind of boring to show it. The one on the main floor has a shower tub combo and the one on the top floor has a shower. That is mainly the only thing that differentiates the two. One of the bedrooms on the top floor is always occupied by the granddaughter as long as she has university. So that is mainly during the school days. But I also imagined that the old couple's child and their family come to visit for, let's say, a week at a time during the summer. That is why they have an extra bedroom always ready for when this happens. The top floor of the house is rarely used, but it does have the main sitting parlor of the house. Now, in old Lebanese houses, the parlor or as we call it, dar, was only used in very rare occasions, like if there was a wedding or wake, or sometimes when a huge number of people decided to come and visit, like around Christmas or Easter or something. That's when the parlor would be put to use. It is normally a big room with seating spaces that line the walls. Now, as you can see, I changed the wallpaper and flooring of the top floor because in my mind this floor is kind of a newer-ish addition to the original house. I also built a small storage room under the stairs and top porch that can be accessed from the outside, but I honestly forgot to film me furnishing it. It doesn't have any furnishing, it's just cluttered up with boxes and broken wardrobes and stuff. But the most important piece of furniture in this room is a couple of generators, and for a very good reason I put them there. Currently in Lebanon, we have a big electricity problem where we only get power for about 10 hours a day with complete blackouts between the hours of 12 and 6 a.m. So these generators have become a necessity in the houses that can afford to pay for fuel. We are now coming close to the end of this speed build, so before we roll into screenshots, I want to thank you for sticking around till now. If you did, drop down a panda emoji in the comments. If you like this build, you can download its stray files off of my Patreon, which will be linked in the description down below. And before I go, if you enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. It honestly would really help me out. Next video will be coming next Tuesday, so until then, stay nerdy, stay happy. Bye!